Hey guys, welcome to Prepper Talk Radio's weekly live every Wednesday night, 6 o'clock Mountain Time. I am Scott, and we've got Shane and Paris in the house. How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Tonight's episode is all about not just surviving, but how to make it in a collapsing economy. I mean, we're not fully there, but we're on our way. And I feel like some days it's more rapidly than other days.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying the words "make it" do not necessarily mean survive, right? Just get by,
Right.
Make it. Okay. Thrive.
Because if you're just surviving, like this goes to a lesson I learned. A lady shared this a while ago. Her daughter was like, "Mom, we need to check on grandma." She's like, "Really? Why?" She goes, "Well, grandma's isn't able to think. She hasn't reached out to us because she hasn't the capacity to think about other people right now because she's in survival mode. And she's been in survival mode a long time. And when you're in survival mode, and this is like a 9-year-old kid explaining this to her mom. She's like, when you're in survival mode, you can't think of other people because all you can think about is what you're up against. So let's call grandma and make sure she's okay." And I was just like, my mind exploded. I was like, 9-year-old kid received the wisdom to share that message to her mom, and then they were able to go help grandma. And I'm like, oh man, because all of us, when we get in survival mode, we retract, right? We pull back from society, we pull back from the friends and family, we pull back, and it's just kind of the natural thing because we're just figuring out how do we get through.
It's like keeping your head above water. You're just barely breathing, but just treading water, and only concerned about yourself, right? It's hard to see. You're like this. You get the blinders on.
And if you can't swim, if you're drowning, I like your analogy. If you're drowning, you're just trying to get your head up enough to breathe, to get that next breath. Well, you can't look at the person next to you and say, how can I help them? It's the same as on the airplane. You put your oxygen mask on first in the emergency, then you help your kids.
Exactly.
So if you're not, and this goes back to a quote from a prior episode, let me see if I can remember it. It was, oh crap. It was such a good quote. And now I'm completely losing it. Oh, here we go. I'd rather be partly great than entirely useless. Right? Seeking a level of greatness, even in a disaster. Seeking a level of comfort through SHTF, whatever that SHTF is for you right now. Like all the people in Northern California who are just buried by snow and can't get out. How many of them don't have food? They're not in a place where they're making it through this thing. They're in a place where they're surviving through this thing.
And the grocery store, did you see that grocery store roof collapsed? The local grocery store.
I hadn't seen that yet.
Because of the snow, yeah. And that was intended to go and help the people who needed help, and now they don't have it because it's under snow and the roof of the building.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I think part of the topic, how to make it in a collapsing economy, that thought that just came to me is not just, we're not just trying to make it, we're trying to avoid traps as well. And part of the trap of a collapsing economy is being dependent on another, being attendant, and particularly the government, right? Because that's what they want. They want us to go to them for our sustenance, for our survival, and such. And so that's the thought that just came to me, is that when you said, it better be partly great and not instead of entirely useless. If you're dependent on the government, you're pretty much entirely useless.
That's true.
Tell us how you really feel, Shane.
Well, I mean, it's true. Like, because when are they ever on time? First of all,
yeah.
Oh, we had a disaster today. Okay, we'll see you in a week. Right? They've got to go through their bureaucratic red tape. Even if they were like absolutely efficient at everything, they still got to go through all the bureaucratic red tape. The National Guard can't come help until the governor requests it. How many people have to talk to the governor to get the governor to request it? What if the governor hasn't visited the area or has no idea that something's happened? He can't request it, right? Nationally, that it's got to go from the governor as well. Like, it's got to go up the chain of command.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether it's a financial emergency or a natural emergency, like you're talking about. One thing I was also thinking and preparing for this is, the economy. This is about a collapsing economy. It has already collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
Collapsed. I don't know. I couldn't say technically when, but I can point back to about March, April of 2008 is when it actually collapsed. At that point, and I forget the individual, went on TV a couple of years later and basically said the banking, if we didn't inject billions of dollars, the entire world economy would have collapsed within 24 hours. And I forget the exact quote, but it's something like that. And that was a statement made, after 2, 3, 4 years after the event happened. And so, obviously it's been propped up since then. It's like Bernie, what's the show about Bernie? Vacation,
Weekend at Bernie's.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Exactly. And it's basically we're in a collapse, and part of our last discussion was having the eyes to see and the ears to hear and to recognize it and being awake. And I think that's the first step, is to recognize when we're actually in that collapse and not wait till, oh, look, the banks are closed down. Where's my money? I can't get any yada yada and so forth. And to wait until that actually happens, it's obviously going to be too late.
Well, that's why we've talked about gold and silver so many times, because it bridges that gap, right? That's why we talk about food storage and having a storehouse in your home, because it bridges that gap. Like when things go more sideways than they've already gone, that's when you're using more of your storehouse, and that's why you get a year out. That's why like you get 90 days. The goal is to have 90 days water. Does anyone know why you want 90 days worth of water?
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but go ahead.
So I learned this years ago, but then it was reiterated just the other day. I took a class, and it's like the idea is get a 90-day supply of water on site. And the reason is because typically within 90 days, you'll have either snowfall, rain, or a resupply option.
Or most people will die off by then, and then you'll be fine.
All the people who weren't ready to thrive in a down situation,
that's right,
will be gone, and you'll have more to choose from, I guess.
I was listening.
That's what I was thinking of, Scott. What do you say? 90 days,
But I think it's the correct look. I mean, our economy is a paper mache economy. It is like that paper mache economy.
Yeah,
it looks like it's one thing, but it's not.
It's hollow.
It's hollow. And
I was listening.
It doesn't take much to set the whole thing on fire.
It doesn't. I was listening to I shared on my personal Instagram earlier today. This is going back a minute, and then I'll kind of wrap it up with the second one I'm going to share. But Ronald Reagan was on a talk show. I think it was Johnny Carson or something like that. And he's like, so what's the answer? What should the government do? And he's like, I think people got it wrong. I think the government that's not the answer. That's the wrong. It's people in a free market system doing what they know they're supposed to do that actually is the answer, and letting people do it. Just leave us alone and let us do what we're supposed to do, because we'll make it work. We'll make it happen. So in terms of the government being the answer, that's the wrong answer. That's the last thing you want to do. And then another one I was listening to was a guy that was talking about the economy, and the lady was questioned him and said, hey, you kind of got famous saying that the banks are going to come take all your money. What's that? What do you mean by that? And he says, well, think about it for a minute. Our economy is going along, and we're doing what we're doing, and they do all these stupid things. And then all of a sudden we have what should have been a collapse or a reset. And then they invent something called quantitative easing, and quantitative easing saves the day. And so it's like but it doesn't. It actually just makes it worse.
Yeah.
It's like putting makeup on a pimple, thinking that your pimple is gone. It's like you just put makeup on it. You just covered that thing up.
It's getting worse underneath.
Yeah, it's still there.
Lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig.
Yeah.
And then it was like, look, what are they going to do next? They'll just invent whatever they got to do to keep it going. And at some point, one of the things that he said is he led this to the CBDCs, which are the bank. What are the CBDCs? What does it stand for again?
Central Bank Digital Currency.
Digital currency. Sorry, thank you. And he says eventually they're going to just transition us. It won't necessarily have this full collapse. It'll more be a transition. This is what his thoughts were. I don't know that I agree with him, but this is what his thoughts were, that they'll just kind of transition into this controlled currency where they can actually limit
Control
what you
everything.
buy and
Mhm.
control everything. And before you know it, you're like, wait a minute, I want to go down to this local place and buy some gold finally, or I want to go to the local place and buy a gun. And nope, can't do it
Yeah.
because your currency has been programmed not to accept that purchase.
Yeah, and once that happens, you've got no other options if you're not already prepared.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping we can take some time to talk about what it, like you say, what it takes to make it in a collapsing economy, and the answer to that is you've got to be ready before it actually happens. It's not like, okay,
That-
this is happening now, we need to take these steps.
You got to see it. Like too many people right now are like, do. Oh, and then this really speaks to the American people. I know this is around the world. This is an issue around the world, but the American spirit is that we'll survive anything. Well, yeah, and so it'll be okay on the other end of it. And I think they kind of program us that way a little bit. If you watch a movie, everybody, like, for example, any disaster movie that you watch, the heroes, they get saved, they make it through, but like millions of people died that we don't see about, like in the periphery. So everybody thinks, though, no, I'm going to be the hero that makes it through. Like the movie I just watched, I'll be that hero. Not everybody can be that hero, first of all, because somebody, the people that died in the city when the tidal wave hit, that's probably going to be more like me, than the real hero, like The Rock or whoever ends up being the actor to play that thing.
Yeah.
Well, in his last movie, the whole movie failed.
Yeah, seriously.
Black Adam was a complete bust. Why?
I didn't
Overpromised, underdelivered. And why is our economy a complete bust? Overpromise, underdeliver. In the last bailout, the 2008 and 9, who did they bail out? Did they bail out the American person? No,
the banks. But the thing is,
banks.
The thing is that they are not supposed to promise or deliver, right?
Yeah.
The government is supposed to help provide equal opportunity, right? And I'm probably overstepping that a little bit as well. So they're supposed to get out of it. They're supposed to stay out of it. And Ronald Reagan had that right as well. I think he was the last great president, even though he did more than quadruple our national debt. But anyway,
once the snowball started, it's hard to stop it. And that's the thing.
And another thing along those lines, if we're not paying attention to the laws that are being passed and the things that are going through, we're going to be surprised. It's like we're going to be caught off guard and caught blindsided. I don't know if you saw this, but I don't know what the date was. I saw this news station saying something about how in Canada, anyways, they were saying that banks no longer have to have a court order to freeze your account.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, why are we giving more and more power to the wrong people? And so that was more evidence for me, anyways, that the banking system needs to be. We need to have our own banking system.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the key word there is we, right? We are not giving them power; they're taking it, right?
Yeah,
it's not our choice. I'm not part of that system. It's I'm disavowed myself from the government and anyone who wants to think that I'm giving them power. And power we will. We give them power with our checkbooks, right? By where we spend our money. And so I think part of making it and thriving in a collapsing economy is having complete control of our money. And when I say money, not current, I'm not saying currency, right? I'm talking money, gold and silver.
So here's the key, right? Here's the key. The key is this: when the economy goes so far sideways that your money is either inaccessible or completely worthless, we're going to move to what is one of the most incredible economic systems. And it's always been around. Right now, it's not utilized very well, not very often, but it's called barter and trade. Barter and trade has been around for as long as anyone created anything and somebody else wanted it. Barter and trade began. I mean,
I did some bartering of my own today. Actually, I had a spare barrel for one of my firearms, and I traded some guy some ammo for it. So
see, barter and trade.
Yep.
There's so much value in learning how to talk to people. It's so funny because all of us spend so much time at home or at work and a lot of time online communicating with other people. And what do you learn in that? You don't learn the skill of communicating in real life, spending your time online. We talked about this before the show. We were talking about how the metaverse has basically died. right? Facebook's shutting down, Meta, sorry, is shutting down all these things, and they're not going to roll it out now. And it's like, that's a great thing, because you're never going to learn how to do all those things in person that you're doing online. The fake world cannot teach you real things. It can teach you application, it can teach you theory, but if the game is set up the wrong way, you can't use it in real life. And it's like, there was a TV show that actually a guy would take, and he would every episode barter his way up to the target item.
Yep.
And I remember one, he started with like a paper clip, and he worked his way up to a fishing boat. And the episode was like 45 minutes long, but it went over the span of about 2 weeks that it took him to work his way up to a fishing boat. And I'm like, it blew my mind, because I'm like, how do you do that? And you actually listen to him talk to people. He's like, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to barter up so I can get this other thing. So if you're okay taking a little bit of a hit on this trade, I would really appreciate it. And people are like, sure. I'm like, what?
And maybe he has something in particular they need, a little bit, a lesser value to them, but higher value to them and lesser to other people, to him or other people. But finding the right person. Yeah.
He traded for, and this was the funniest part. I'm trying to remember this right. He traded, I think it was a car for a fly fishing rod. And I'm like, who would trade a fishing rod for a car, right? Well, to that person, that fishing rod, it was an old, I think it was like a Japanese or something bamboo fishing rod that's like a couple $2,000 to $3,000. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've heard of these. I've always wanted one of these. I'll trade my car away for that. And he got this car that was worth like $5,000. And I'm like, how does that happen? But the guy's like, I've got 3 cars. I don't need this car. So this is a great trade.
I really like what Utah Mike just said. He that's true. You barter your labor for currency, and you then use a currency to get needed products.
Yep.
What value do you bring to the marketplace? That's what if you're an employee, then your value is whatever your employer is willing to pay you, and more importantly, it's whatever you're willing to accept that he's willing to pay or she is willing to pay you. Because if you can provide more value than what you're receiving in compensation, then you ought to go ask for it. You got to go or transfer to a new place where you can get the value that you're really bringing. If you're a self-employed person like I am, then your value is the service or the product that you've created or that you have to be able to bring to bear. And so we really are genuinely in a bartering kind of a situation. We just don't think of it that way.
Yeah. And absolutely. I think the key part about that Mike said there was that turning a currency, which is a debt note, right? It's an obligation, into actual wealth, into tangible wealth, not just, like you said, Mike, products, but turning that into wealth and whether it's gold or silver or commodities of whatever kind, because the dollars we have in our bank accounts, the bills we hold in our wallet, are not wealth. They are equivalent to a debt note, right? But then taking that and then turning it into something that actually has real value. And I think that's the real key in this whole process. But like you were saying, Paris, is your time, as that's what you're bartering with, is your labor, your skills. And I think part of is surviving what's coming is okay, we have our regular jobs, but are we working on a side hustle, right? Are we working on another way to bring in another source of income? I know, Paris, you're focused on that, like laser focused on creating multiple sources of income. And, we're trying to do this right here with you guys here, with the channel and so forth as well. And hopefully someday we'll get there before the collapse. That's what our goal is. We'd love to see that kind of success, right? I think just to be able to say, wow, we did it. We didn't give up. We didn't fail. We just kept trying, and we actually made it. And so I find a lot of fulfillment in that, whether we're not making any money at this, right? And that's not the goal. The goal is to spread the word, right? Wake people up.
I love this. Backroads. I built a deck for a pickup truck back in '92. Homeowner paid for the materials. I supplied the labor, and he got a truck. I do this a lot. I do this a lot more than I realize, but I get prep stuff free all the time, but it's not really free because I have to do something every time to be awarded that prep stuff. I get food storage. I get knives. I've had a battle box shipped to my house for free. You know, back when I was doing PrepperCon, I got like $30,000 worth of stuff, gear, food storage, tools, all of that stuff for trade,
Yeah, that's
for
legit.
promotion, right? We've got our Jase cases. I've got one already, but then I've got two. And one of my Jase cases came for promoting Jase case.
Mm-hmm.
And having those antibiotics, especially with a household where everyone's like, you gotta go to the doctor. And I'm like, do you? You know, most of the time I'm like, nah, not so much. I can take care of this. You know, and now I'm trying to learn more natural medicinal ways, natural healing ways from nature to do things. But it's like a lot of the stuff I've gotten either on trade or free. Like here, okay, I'm going to reach around here. This is a Strike Master survival tool. It's just a ferro rod with some very oily wood that I can shave that off too. Okay, here's this. This is a Stealth Gear holster. I got that for promoting them on just promoting them on social media. Yep. It's like there's a million different ways you can go about getting stuff on barter, on trade.
Provide
like
value.
Me promoting somebody on my social medias gives them recognition, right? Is someone going to necessarily buy that first time? Not necessarily, but there are people like I held a class a while ago and I didn't teach. I brought in a teacher. And that teacher then talked about all the different things that you need in first aid. And out of that class, he got 6 new customers. And those customers spent thousands of dollars with him. And I know that because 2 of them are family members that are like, dude, I just spent thousands of dollars with your buddy Gavin. And I'm like, seriously? They're like, oh yeah, I got something for every one of my family. And I'm like, dang, that's awesome. So now there's one of my uncles and all his kids are now taken care of because he saw this huge value in that one little class. And it's amazing because you can bring other people together and like, hey, maybe I don't have the skill to be able to barter my time and my labor for something, but I might know somebody, you might know somebody you can do the same thing with. And it turns into like this little community of helping each other get what everyone else needs. It's like Bob has or Shane, here we go. Shane's got a chicken. Paris has chicken feed. And I have a goat. And it's a milking goat. And Shane wants Shane wants the milk, you know, and he could trade to Paris because I don't want anything Shane has right now. Maybe, you know, he could trade to Paris and Paris can trade to me for something else. And then the milk can get to Shane. It's like you could do stuff like that and get community moving and rotating stuff around. Like the ideal though someday is where we're all living in this utopia where everyone's living a consecrated life, where you're giving and receiving and helping, and there's no poor among us. And the only way to get to that is to rely on God and to be willing to give everything you have to help somebody else out.
Yeah, the thought that came to me as you were talking is necessity is the mother of invention, right? And so and I remember, as a kid, we don't have a job. I got to figure out how to make some money because I really want this rock climbing gear, right? How am I going to get these new climbing shoes? Stupid things like that, right? But it's the same way. I really, say you need a prep, and you really focus on that. God will provide a way. You will be able to figure out a way to get what you need. And like I say, necessity is the mother of invention. And there are multiple ways, like Scott's saying, like side hustle and so forth. But that's I think the beginning of being able to survive in a collapsing economy.
It's funny the things you can do to make money. Like you can go create a YouTube channel, get it monetized, right? You can go do affiliate marketing. You can go learn a skill. What's that?
That YouTube channel thing is a little bit longer of a game plan.
It depends. Like you can go create. Some people, like I've got a friend who has 10 million followers on her YouTube channel. Right. If you hit the right niche, you can make crap tons of money.
Yeah.
But it's like there are people out there every day that are making it happen by consistently putting in time to do something.
Yep.
And that's the key. It's like you're consistently putting in time. You go to work, raise your hand if you have a job.
Oh, self-employed.
Right.
But,
so no, you're unemployed. Unemployed.
I'm my own boss.
Right. And it's different. But like I'm working on stuff. I have a job, but I'm working on stuff outside of that job for me. when I'm at that job, I'm not working on stuff for me. I'm working on stuff for my boss and his company to help him get rich, right? That's the problem with our current wage economy, is we're recognizing, hey, we're making this guy rich off of our labor. And if my labor is even more effective, he's making more money off of me, right? I'm producing more, but am I getting paid more? Not always. Most of the time we're not.
Yeah, I think part of that is also, looking at what field you're in. Is it something that's a necessity? When things go south, when it hits the fan, is that business still going to be around, or do you need to think about moving to something that's more essential? A more essential trade, whether if it's in producing food, those types of things, and if you're out there selling cars or hot tubs or whatever right now, maybe that's not the best place to be, because those can tend to be luxury items, right? Probably not a good place to be. So evaluating where you're at, your career, your job, whatever you want to call it, and then making a change as soon as possible might be a good idea.
I think
go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead,
I was going to say that if you're going to really set aside and stop where if you're feeling like where you're headed is not going to be successful in a collapsing economy, the time to you got to immediately make a full stop and say, okay, what am I doing right now? And what do I need to do, or what should I do so that I can make sure I need to be where I need to be? And one of the first things you want to do is cut out all the extra stuff. Like, how much extra stuff are you doing in your life that's really not a necessity? And really be honest with yourself, because a lot of times we're like, oh, well, I need to have this extra, car. And no, you don't need an extra car. Maybe, oh, I need to have the fancier clothes. No, you don't need the fancier clothes. I need to have the Rolex. No, you don't need the Rolex. So be honest with yourself, and then just get down. Like a couple of episodes ago, we talked about minimalism. So as the economy is collapsing, first of all, you check your income. Make sure you're making what you need to make, and then check your expenses. Make sure your expenses are as low as possible, even paring it down to the bare minimums for a little while, until you can get, one, an emergency fund. Two, you can get your preps. And emergency fund to me is food storage. It includes, I should say, it's some cash, it's some gold, silver, whatever you can have for currency, for money. And then it's also food storage and water storage. And then really making sure that, okay, once you've got your foundation set, okay, the world didn't come to an end. All right, cool. So I have a little more time. Okay, I maybe can go on that vacation now. But you got your foundation done. Like, that's, to me, too many people are like, oh, well, I got plenty of time, or it's, the world's still working, so I can, I don't have to worry about it. And I'm like, no, get the foundation. Once you're out of debt, or debt's being managed, once you have your emergency fund ready, you got some cash, you got some gold, you got some silver, we got your food storage, you got your water storage. Now, if you have extra money, or if we have extra time, let's, first things first, and then go from there. And that's to me the kind of the process I would follow in a collapsing economy.
I think you really use the word extra correctly, right? When I carry another magazine on my side, I don't call it extra; it's a spare magazine, because I need it. When it's extra, then yes, you can apply it more liberally, right? Instead of toward the necessities, you have what's extra. But I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. I think a Rolex is a necessity.
Oh,
just kidding.
Are you saying
what? I think it's important to have an automatic watch, right? Something that's going to survive an EMP. That's something that doesn't take a battery. That's just this quality is going to run for decades without any attention. That's why you need a Rolex, but that's why I need a Rolex anyway.
So
I'll shut up.
Here's kind of a recap of some of the things that I've learned. Learning skills and doing something on the side can put you in a better situation. Animal husbandry, homesteading, food processing, that in and of itself, those are some fantastic skills to have when things are good and when things are bad. But here's the thing, is like, if you want to have peace during the hardest times, you've got to find peace now, and you've got to be disciplined enough to get to it.
Yeah.
Goes back to the I think he's the Kenyan runner that ran the marathon in under 2 hours, or in 2 hours. Like, he's the only one that's ever been able to do it, and I don't think anyone else is going to come close to him for a while, because they lack the discipline that he has. Just like David Goggins, the toughest MF that there is. I'll just do the letters and not the words. But he seeks out pain because in pain is where he thrives. Pain is where he learns the most about himself. So what are we doing right now to eliminate future pain? Face the tough stuff and do something hard. Create a better system for yourself. Gold and silver is going to have its heyday, and then it's going to be useless for a little while, and then it's going to come back, and I guarantee we're going to have little tents popped up and little local markets where everyone comes and they're like, hey, I got tomatoes. Oh, cool. Hey, I got peaches. Oh, sweet. Oh, hey, I got grasshoppers. And everyone's like, what? Yeah, I've been catching grasshoppers. You can take them fishing over at the pond. Oh, you'll find as soon as you explain what the purpose of something is, people might find the value in it. And so we'll bring the things that we're learning and doing into our little community centers, and we'll thrive together. And that's the key. Like, get enough skills and knowledge and some stuff so that when things get worse, which we know they will, just from a biblical standpoint, things will get worse. That's okay. And you'll have a way to help yourself and others by having those skills, by having that surplus of things.
Here's something that I heard just the other day, and maybe you heard this as well, Paris and Scott, is that, who Ray Dalio is, right? He's the fund manager he was for the largest hedge fund in the world. He I guess had been known for saying cash is trash. You don't want cash. You want to be in the markets, yada, yada. He has now has flipped and taken a U-turn and said that, you know what, cash is more attractive than stocks, because even though the dollar is deflating, inflation is going up, stocks or equities are going to drop more than that. So it's better to be in cash than it is in the markets, which I'm going to counter that and say, put that cash into gold and silver, and that will at least retain and not lose, based on inflation or market, money in the markets, which is going down. He says at least 20%. So I thought that was really interesting that he would finally come to that point, which, something we've already known, but now is in the open.
And before gold and silver, food and water and survival gear that you might need to keep that. Because
the 3 Bs.
When I bought my generator, my wife was like, we took money out of our emergency fund to buy the generator. And she's like, is that okay? Can we do that? I'm like, well, I'd rather have something that I can use in an emergency than have cash in the bank that I can't use. So this is actually, my generator is now part of my emergency fund. You know what I mean? So to me, that was a good, that was a value buy.
I love the beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, the 3 Bs. Right. Beans is any type of food. Bullets is typically bullets, but any type of defensible tools. And then Band-Aids, first aid, but also anything that is a usable tool to solve a problem. All of those things become very tradable. Backroads No Man Lender, he just pointed out worms are one of the oldest commodities that hominids traded. That's really interesting. You think about, we've traded rocks and gems and stones and gold and silver and chickens and every type of livestock, right? There's and grains and vegetables. Like, you can trade anything that's tangible, right? But right now you can trade anything that's untangible too on digital markets. But when those digital markets disappear, you need the tangibles. When it's a survival situation, you have to have the tangibles. So if you only have the digitals, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Wake up today, diversify. Paris, you were brilliant to diversify into that generator. Right? My emergency fund is mostly my food storage and home store. Cash, gold and silver,
But that's right? It's also a hedge on inflation as well. If you have that in your pantry, and in the next month, 2 months, year, that's going to go up by 10, 15, 20%, which it is in all reality. You've made 15% on your money.
Keep talking. I'm going to go grab something. I'm going to show you something to come back on that point. Hold, keep going.
All right, cool. So I think what else I was going to mention as well is, is this is all, kind of financial, and we have to set ourselves up for success now to be able to survive then. And so, being responsible and having a budget. I know, Paris, you're all about that, and that and that takes some failure. And then we kind of talked about that in our previous segment as well. Is that you've got to fail, and maybe that failure is going to be big, or maybe it's going to be small, but it's okay to fail.
It is.
Nesquik, you had to go get Nesquik.
This stuff stores for a very long time.
Because it's fake.
Mostly fake. But here's the thing. My kids are crack fiends for this stuff.
Oh, mine too. I've got a 27-year-old that when she switched from the bottle, we had to get her off the bottle. We had to get her into chocolate milk, and she's never looked back. She still has at least a glass a day.
But this
27.
Like, this stuff, we've got all the good food storage too, but we've got stuff like this because guess what? My kids freaking love it. And how tradable is this?
Yep.
Yeah, I think
Super
Melissa
tradable.
she's probably right. Liquor is probably better, and that is pretty nasty stuff. We kind of like Ovaltine around the house, which is still not
Ovaltine's
great.
great too.
Still not great
Carnation's
either.
great.
Make
Like,
your
having
own.
those
Get some
things-
cocoa and sugar and make your own.
But the real reason I'm showing this is this has gone up 6 times in price
Mhm.
from when
Wow.
we bought it. 6 times.
That's crazy.
That's the craziest thing. Most of our food storage has at least doubled in value.
Wow.
Melissa, that moo milk, I think it's not, well, I think they have both options of actual dehydrated milk and then a milk substitute. It's not actually milk, but it's a bunch of different components meant to taste like chocolate milk. So I've got a bunch of that too. And we do like that too. So it's kind of a feel good food, right? Help wean you off that chocolate milk until you have nothing left.
If you want real milk, one of the best places I've found
Brown cows.
real milk in a freeze-dried solution or a canned solution, Thrive. It's
Do
actually
they have some?
skim milk because you can't freeze dry like whole milk,
Right.
because the fat goes bad in it. But the skim milk, it is actually really good, and you can make it taste thicker, like 1% or 2%, by just thickening it up. It's not horrible, but that's like the best, and it's real milk. Everybody else, it's whey milk substitute.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just reading the
That's a really
comments
good
here.
point.
So yeah, like Backroads is saying there about solar panels. Totally agree. I love solar panels. Yeah, batteries can be reconditioned. So there's all different ways that you can. Instead of the first thought is, okay, I'm going to go to the store and buy what I need at full retail price, right? I'm not going to barter, rather than get on the local classifieds and get creative, like Backroads is saying there, building your own solar power system, how to use solar panels and use batteries for really cheap.
Instead of going to the store, go to the library. Go follow our channel. We link to a lot of cool stuff in our group. Go to YouTube. There's some phenomenal like technology driven guys on there that show you actually how to build your own array, like with used parts, how to build alternative generators with parts you can scrounge from like pick and pull automotive places. Like you can get stuff really cheap and do it yourself. There was a quote that was going around. It's like, most people aren't good at being poor. Like you could live like a king and be poor. It's how you use things and how you make things look better. Like if you want to make some money right now, you can go flip furniture. Take old furniture, sand it all, wood furniture, dressers, stuff like that, sand it all, repaint it, put new hardware on it. I know a lady that makes $400 to $500 every piece she turns over, and she gets them for free sometimes.
Wow.
But she spends very little money on these things and then decks them all out and sells them. She'll spend $20-$30 on paint and lacquer and stains and hardware and turn these things around for $400, $500, $600, $700.
I think another thing to do let's just imagine like a curve. As the economy goes this down, if you can see on the YouTube channel, on the video, you'd see my hand going down. And what we need to do is, I don't want to go down with it. Like I don't want to go like how. Anyways,
Yeah.
My hands are. I don't want to go down with it. I want to. So the reality, my visual here is, I want to disconnect from that as the economy is collapsing. I want to be building.
Anti-fragile is the word.
Yeah. And so let the economy go do what it's going to do. But how do I disconnect as much as possible? So in our world right now, I'm going to be the first to probably say that I don't know that you can 100% disconnect, but disconnect as much as possible so that when the rest of it disconnects and we have a collapse, it's not going to hurt as bad.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be a point where you just rip the Band-Aid the rest of the way off. But if you can get it off slowly for a little while, it's nice. So as the economy is collapsing, think about it. What can you disconnect from? I can disconnect from, maybe I can disconnect a little bit from 3 hours of social media or whatever the average is in America. And maybe I can start learning a skill. Maybe I can disconnect from being such a consumer and buying everything that comes across my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed. And I can start saving money. I can start putting some money into a better use. Maybe instead of following with, every TV show and keeping up with all the darn, whatever the newest HBO, whatever it is, what are you doing are you reading? Take time to read. One of the things that I was talking with my daughter last night, she's 18. She's really kind of struggling with some things in life as she's trying to figure out what to do and where to go and how to, guide her life. And I reminded her, I said, you love to read. Do you ever take that love of reading and use it to read the scriptures? And she's like, Dad, I haven't. I need to read, because she reads books all these adventure books and all these Harry Potter or whatever. So I'm like, you love to read. I'm not saying get rid of all these other books, but add to that books on how to better yourself, how to become more self-reliant, how to become learning the scriptures. I read books about personal development. I read books about financial planning. I read books about, I actually just got a recommendation for a book today called Survival Theory. I think it's Jonathan Holloway or something. This guy said, this is it's just no bones, fantastic book. So I want to go read that. So what are you doing right now in your life that you could disconnect from that and start to have a different life and direct yourself towards a more self-reliant destination?
Yeah,
that's
I totally agree with you, Paris. And that's where I was going in our last few seconds here, is to disconnect now, feel that pain now, make that transition now, so that, like you say, when everything starts to curve downwards, which it's curving downwards, that we maintain or we thrive. And that's what anti-fragility brings when you are prepared, and unplugging from those systems and disconnecting now, which is hard. That's the hard part, is not being part of the world, not being part of everything that that everybody else is enjoying in. You make those sacrifices now, so that when things go south big time, that we're ready, not only ready for it, but we'll thrive and we'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
So here's the wrap up statement that I feel kind of hits the nail on the head. We've talked about, I'd rather be partly great than entirely useless. Even more simple, people make fun of prepping, people mock self-reliance, but how many people drive a car with an airbag and never use it? But how many people are mad that they've used an airbag? Nobody. Everybody's glad they used an airbag if it got deployed.
Or fire
That's
or whatever, yeah.
Prepping is your airbag for the economy, for life, for disruptions. For anything negative that could happen to you, prepping can benefit you in those situations. For the people in California, for the people in East Palestine, for you in your journey right now, wherever you are, prepping is that airbag that's going to deploy when you need it.
That's a great analogy.
And if you can live your life and keep building that airbag, it's not just going to protect you, it's going to protect your family. And that's where we want to get you. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of the Prepper Talk Radio family. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, turn on notifications over on our YouTube. Make sure you're following us over there as well, because then you can see all the cool stuff that we're showing you with product reviews, gear reviews, and how-tos. So until next time, stay ready-minded, and thanks for tuning in, guys.
See you next week.
Guys.